Okay.
Well, hello again, and welcome to another week of music talk and music programming and everything DJ here on Mobile Music Thursday. This week, I am so excited that I'm going to skip all the dumb jokes I usually say to start the show and just jump right into introducing my very talented and very entertaining guest. If you haven't met him before, then you're missing out, and you should seek him out. You see, I'm trying to get them to follow you in mobs at the conferences coming up at the ADJA conference. Scott, it's Scott Faver. And he's often known as, or referred to as, in DJ circles, the game master. He is the master of creating amazing and creative games. He has created DVDs. In fact, I think he's lost count as to how many games that he's done. Plus, he's a big contributor to the industry as well. Every conference that he attends, he does his breakfast with the game master, where you can sit down, share, learn some tips. He always has great things to share that you can take and use immediately. I tell you, when it comes to something that's effective and useful, Scott has pared it down. No fat on that guy. It's all good content and all good stuff. But aside from all that, he's just a really fun and entertaining guy to be around and talk with. And so, since he's so busy, this is my chance to have 20 minutes to just talk with Scott Faver. So it's my pleasure. Scott, thanks for being on the show this week.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Jason, that was like an incredible introduction. I need to record that. And by the way, where do I send the check?
Oh, well, I'll give you the address after the show.
Perfect.
We'll cut that part out, though.
Nah, my mama, she used to say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
That's right, or a good show,
Precisely.
So on this show, we talk about music, mobile music, and we talk about what's working on the dance floor, what's not working, how different DJs program music, and also like kind of just the whole approach of dealing with music. Because at the core of being a DJ is being able to program a great set of music and then layer on top of that all kinds of talent, all kinds of other things. And well, obviously doing great music programming does take talent. I'm not insinuating that. But tonight, I want to talk about, Scott, how you handle music. Now, most of the emphasis when you speak and when you perform and when you share, you don't often talk a lot about music, how you use music, and how that works for you. So I'm really curious to learn, the ways that you like to use music and the ways that you approach actually putting your music together for the night. So why don't we start with just your approach on how you program your night, or kind of the game plan you go in with, if you pick as you go?
Wow, there were a lot of questions in there.
Oh, I picked the last one.
The first thing I like to do is I like to press play.
That's always a good start.
Yeah, it's always a good start. I'm going to tell you guys a secret, because this is not being recorded and thousands of DJs are not going to watch this.
Just between us.
Just between you and me.
Mm-hmm.
When I present at the Las Vegas DJ show or any of the other conventions that I attend, most people think that my entire complete evening is filled with games and interaction and excitement, and it's a 3-ring circus and all this is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Not true.
I'm a DJ just like everybody else that's in this profession.
Mm-hmm.
The distinction is, of course, when and where, how I make my moment. If I have a client who wants music, I'm the DJ, and I am really focused on programming and what is going to appeal to the audience that's in front of me that night.
Sure.
If I have a client who wants interactive games, that's fine too. But ultimately, a good game has a beginning, a middle, and a segue.
Mm-hmm.
You thought I was going to say an end.
Mm-hmm.
No, because an end is what happens when the party's over.
Sure.
You're done. But a segue is what allows you to bridge from a game to the next activity. And a lot of the interaction that I do moves from a game, a moment, an activity that leads to dancing. That's always my segue. I want to fill the dance floor. So if I've played something with 10 people, I'm going to move these 10 people into a dance. I'm going to move them into the next moment. If it happens to be something traditional like the wedding cake, so be it. That's fine. But my ultimate goal is to fill the dance floor.
Right.
When I first started playing games, that was my motivation. Well, they're not dancing, and they're not interested in this music, and maybe I'm a bad programmer. Oh, they want to play a game. All right, so we'll play a game.
Okay.
But the ultimate movement is that segue. to take them to the dance floor, to get them dancing.
Right.
And you got to be prepared. You have to do more than just have a playlist.
Okay.
This is your thing.
This is what I'm waiting. This is what I'm waiting for.
This is what you're waiting for. Here's the secret. Playlists are worthless.
What? Playlists? They are. Well, okay, let me distinguish. Okay. So playlists that like I've got blocks of like, this is my 80s list. So I go, I want something good from the 80s. So I go to this list because I forget songs. I forget really good ones. And I go, ooh, no. Ooh, that'd be a good one. Oh, that'd be a really good one. I'm putting that in. Versus here's my list for the entire night from beginning to end. And maybe I'll switch one or two songs out.
Well, let's back up. I have a nose, so I'm smelling. I have ears, so I'm listening. I'm keeping this shut. And I have two eyes that are probably going in both different directions at the same time. Because I want to smell the audience. I want to watch them. I want to listen to them. I want to be able to put all of my five senses into what is happening in this moment. And the selection of what I'm going to play next is not based on, does this song go with that song? Does that song go with the next song? It's not about sets for me. It's about watching the audience. Listen, if you're using virtual DJ, you can virtually get anything to mix together. You can have Mary Had a Little Lamb mixed with the hottest Pitbull song. It's as simple. So don't focus so much on your list. Focus on the audience.
Okay.
You can hear their response. If you've got a full dance floor, great. But there's still vibe going on that's more than just the beat of the music. There's a vibe on the floor. Are they talking or are they dancing? Are they dancing and talking?
Right.
Are they singing to the music? Are there people who are dancing and others that are still sitting at the tables, but also nodding their heads? This is a good song.
Right.
Okay? And do they... Oh, that look that they give. They're sitting down. They're never going to dance. That's not what that particular person is there for that night. But you can see by their response, they're into what you're doing.
Okay.
It's a big difference. The playlist, my art teacher used to say, you need to know the rules. So you have to paint within the lines. It's fine. You got to know those rules. But once you know them, then you can become Picasso. Because Picasso didn't paint in the lines. He strayed. Salvador Dali, same concept. They strayed, but they were traditional painters.
You have to know what rules you're breaking, and know that you're breaking them deliberately, rather than just doing whatever you do willy-nilly.
Precisely. Yeah. So yes, there is a method to my madness, but that madness is not dictated by a list, but instead it's dictated by a whole myriad of factors that have been dictated by how is the audience responding, what did the client request, what is the murmur in the room.
So give me an example. Give me an example of a murmur. If you, I know this kind of puts you on the spot a little bit. So, and I'm always compassionate with everyone's memory because mine isn't that great. So if you can think back to an event or even an example that you can remember where you picked up certain cues that directed you to go in a direction, and like what music that you did. And the intention of this is not for someone to go, oh, when I hear that, I'll play this, but rather to get an idea of how you do what you do when you feel the vibe, Because it's easy to go, just feel the vibe. And if someone doesn't have any like real sense of that, they're going to like, okay, there's a vibe. I'm feeling, I don't really know what to do with this. So maybe you can give us an example.
Okay. So you're going to do a little edit on this because you just dropped off. I think I know what your question is. Are you still with me?
I am.
Okay, good. Because you did this. And then you started moving again.
Oh, did you miss the whole question?
No, I got the question. I just wanted to let you know that my hesitation is because you dropped off for a moment.
Okay, great.
Okay, just so that you know, and you'll figure it out because you're the master of this stuff.
That's right.
Okay, so the question, if I understand it correctly, is what cues am I looking for? And what is the murmur?
Right.
And what is the vibe? Okay, when you walk into When your audience walks into the room, it is cocktail period. Are they, you can hear a pin drop.
Mm-hmm.
Or are they loud and they're talking and they're animated?
Mm-hmm.
This immediately explains to you what mood your audience is in.
Okay.
And not that you should mirror that mood necessarily, because if they are quiet, you need to then put them in a happier place.
Sure.
And your music selection can do that. But you don't want to beat them over the head with this happy music.
Right, like Walking on Sunshine. Like, welcome, come on, let's go, people.
Exactly. It's the same as when your coach tells you not to get on the microphone and scream or puke, as they say, "Hey, everybody, I'm Mr. DJ, and I'd like to show you a really good time." Your music does the same thing.
That's my
to
best
an audience.
act. That's my best act, Scott. Don't make fun of that. It's my best material. I practiced in radio for years to do that.
I understand.
But I digress. So anyway, just like your music coach doesn't tell you to puke on the mic.
Exactly. And it's the same concept with your music. Your music can actually be abrasive to your audience, or it could put them to sleep. And you need to determine at which moment you're going to be in the background. And it's okay to be in the background. And when you want to slowly seduce the audience, to gently massage and grab them and touch them and make them feel this moment.
We're still talking about music, right?
We are.
Okay.
We are. I'll tell you.
So give me an example. So how about so to kind of make it a little bit more concrete, because I'm following you. I'm getting the vibe here, if you know what I'm saying. But say they come in, they're quiet, the energy's really low, they're just kind of like coming in and looking around and things like that, and you're like, okay, we need to elevate this mood. So what might you do in a hypothetical situation? We just have a little hypothetical situation going on, and what would you do? You pick out like maybe this song or this type of song, and then kind of go where, like kind of how would you bring them along? What would be something that someone could go, oh, I get the idea of that.
Okay. Again, you have some parameters, lines that have been drawn for you by your client. They have said that they want this nuance in the room. When I'm sitting down with a client, I'm not going to say, well, I've got a playlist, and if you want jazz, then I've got my jazz list. And if you want Motown, I've got my Motown list.
Sure.
But what I recognize is that typically what happens is there is a set of, everybody uses it, lounge sound. Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. It's that sound.
Yes.
And it's very popular. But what happens is your event looks and sounds like every other event. They could have turned on Muzak, the 50 station or lounge, and you'd be wallpaper.
Right.
Well, we don't want to do that, do we?
No.
We want to be able to move the audience. So when you play Frank Sinatra, which tune are you going to play? Are you going to play The Way You Look Tonight, which is what everybody plays? Or maybe you're going to play Bewitched, which is not as popular as Fly Me to the Moon.
Or New York, New York.
Oh, even worse, New York, New York. See, there are lots of options, lots of places you can go that can still allow you to distinguish yourself in that genre, not sound like every other station, but still provide them with that essence. A great example is when a bride and groom says to me, well, I want Bon Jovi and Perry Como. And I say, well, then you want Vitamin Strings.
Vitamin Strings?
Yes, because Vitamin Strings will give you classical music of contemporary songs.
Sure.
So now what you've done is you've offered them that vibe, contemporary. I have a client who's planning a disco party, and they do not want any of the original disco songs.
Oh, wow.
They want them all remade. When you have a client who says that they want the lounge sound, but they want it to represent their island theme, well, then you go hunting, don't you?
Yeah.
You look for, practically every traditional song that you can think of has been redone in reggae.
Yeah.
And so
really
you can do that. And look what you have done for the vibe. Look what you have done to the audience because it's not expected.
Right.
It's not as if you're banging them over the head, as I mentioned earlier, but instead you're giving them just what they want differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to add to that, there's new if you do some searching or you do some opening or just kind of hunt around as you suggested. I mean, I just loved it when you said so. Now you're hunting, right? And I love it if every DJ listening to the show like occurred to them like I should go music hunting. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
go what if I could. Is there music out there that somebody already produced that has these two vibes coming together, to create so you're actually creating something out of putting this together rather than like, well, here's my pot of music for this. I'm creating something each time. My example of that I use a lot is electro swing. It's a new genre. It's really fun, but it brings together it brings kind of that electronic sound of now, your Moby kind of sound, and then it puts it with classic swing rhythms and tunes and samples and sounds. So you got like the older folks going, hey, I'm kind of digging this. And the young people are like, hey, I like the electronic part of this. And the whole room is just grooving on this vibe that, again, like as you point out, is totally different than what they experienced at the last wedding that was playing, jazz hits from the Blue Note album. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it doesn't sound like the standard fare.
Exactly. And you distinguish who you are. The audience immediately recognizes this is not going to be Bob and Betty's Bride that we were at last weekend
Right.
as a repeat.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you're going to have a unique experience. And that's what I hope that most DJs will excel, step up to the challenge, if you will. I'm a big fan of promo only.
Mm-hmm.
And I get all of their content. And I preview all of that, and I listen to what's going to go from music in the past to what's current, what my client is looking for. But ultimately, I'm not stopping there. I am always on, as you say, the hunt. I'm looking for that unique sound that's going to match what vibe I want to generate in that room. I remember in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was this industrial sound, and they were really hot for this sound.
Yeah.
Or
really tough to dance to.
Yes. It's not. What is this other stuff? I'm trying to remember. It has a name, and I'm drawing a blank.
Grunge?
No. That's Washington thing. I try to stray away from that. And that's another thing. If your client asks you to play something that you are not familiar with, or that you don't like, that it gives you a headache, guess what? They're not your client.
Yeah, that's very true.
The best thing you can do for that person is introduce them to an ADJA member or whatever organization you belong to that has a pool of DJs, and you can say, I know a DJ that specializes in that sound. And what I've done is I've had a client say, well, that's great, but we still want you. We want your personality. We want all of that. And so then what happens is I'm going to now pair up with that DJ.
Right.
And we're going to work together as a team. We're going to tag team the room. And then my talents and their talents are going to come together and create something that I could not do by myself.
Sure.
And I've benefited my client as a result.
Right, because that shows like the whole. I mean, if we're collaborating as artists rather than competing like plumbers, there's so much more that we can do.
I always like to say colleagues, not competition.
It's true.
Another thing that I want to make sure that we touch base on is that word that I mentioned earlier about seduction.
Yeah.
If you go to see Ellen DeGeneres, or when Oprah Winfrey was in her prime, or even Johnny Carson, if you want to go way back, but it's still the same idea. When they walk out on the stage and the audience is, they're all excited. That did not just happen like that.
Right.
There was a whole pre-performance warm-up act, a whole series of other things going on, and things that you don't see going on in the background with the guy holding the cue card saying, applause, scream, that kind of stuff. It's all warming them up. So in the moment that the person walks on stage, they can't contain themselves. They're all fired up. They're
right.
DJs sometimes will say, well, the party begins when the bride and groom have their first dance and we start dancing.
Right.
No. That's not the case.
No.
The party begins the moment the first guest arrives.
Yes.
Whether it be at the ceremony or whether it's at the cocktail period or in the main room when they get in front of you. And you need to recognize if you were not at the ceremony, that there was a complete vibe going on before they even got into your place. And that's why I go back to, what are you hearing? What are you seeing? What is the emotion of the crowd? And do you need to now bring them somewhere? And is your plan greater than just, well, this is my playlist, that it's going to allow you to take them to the place where you want them, which is on the dance floor, partying, having a great time.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, and you hit on like something so important, which is acknowledging where they're at now, rather than go, I don't care where you're at now. This is what we're going to do. Right. And then they're like, well, why should I listen to you, Scott? I'm over here where I'm at right now. What's wrong with where I'm at right now? And then all kinds of stuff gets in the way of your objective, which is just to have everyone have a good time.
Exactly. We're on point. And again, it goes back to, is your music hitting them over the head? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily need to be Walking on Sunshine hitting them over the head too fast, too much, 280s or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's, have you connected with them? And have you now, within 2 or 3 songs, brought them to where you want to put them in this moment?
Yeah, well, and I think that when you work on that vibe that you're talking about is in those moments, and I think any DJ that's done a lot of, that maybe hasn't even considered this, but has done a lot of shows, has had those nights where it felt as though every song they played, everybody responded like, that was exactly what I wanted to hear next. Because you're in, we use words like, we're in the groove, or we're in the drift, or we're in the, but ultimately, we are tuned in to them. So we're not really even thinking about it. We're like, oh, they would like this now. They would like that now. And then that's what creates that. So as a way, what is a good way that we could practice getting the vibe of the room and translating that to the music we're selecting, or the direction we're going to go?
So I'm going to play like a politician here for a second, and I'm not going to answer your question.
Oh, fine.
But instead, I'm going to share with you something that is a trap, a Todd Mitchum word, trap, something that a DJ gets trapped in because it's the automatic thing that we do. Because you mentioned it. You're in the groove, you're in the mix, you're in the moment, you're in that, and you're connecting with the audience. But you have to make sure that you're not doing this. Mm-hmm. Because you may be connecting with the 50 people that are on the dance floor. The same 50 people that have been on the dance floor all night long. Mm-hmm. And you have a room with 300 guests. And there's 250 that have never even stepped onto the floor. Because everything that you play has that same beat, that same sound, that same groove. And you're appealing to those same 50 people and ignoring the rest of the room. Mm-hmm. You need to have flow, ebb and flow, to and from the dance floor, to and from different genres that appeal to different partitions, groups of the audience. Now, I'm not saying kill the dance floor for one person who wants to listen to the God's worst country song that you could ever have selected.
Right.
But by the same token, you need to be open to be professional enough to recognize that you, as the DJ, the one in control, the one who can make the moment happen, it's okay if you kill the dance floor. It's okay.
Right.
Because as a professional, you can bring them back, whether it takes 1 song, 2 songs, or something like a game that I do that would segue into more dancing. I get a request the other night. They want this song from 1969. Everybody, by the way, has been grooving to hip-hop, latest music, and they want me to play Spiral Staircase, More Today Than Yesterday.
Wow.
You know the song?
That's elite.
I love you more today than yesterday, not as much as tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, it's an old tune. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, man, there's no way I'm going to play this.
Right, like one I forgot for a reason.
Exactly. But that's the trap.
Yes.
Because when I played that song, I got 30 more people on the dance floor.
Wow, really? Because there was a connection there that was more. There. So how did you discern that, or did you just say, well, I'm going to take the chance because they requested it?
The latter. It's about trusting your gut, about trusting your instincts. When somebody drunk comes over, somebody who's not danced all night long, somebody who's not in your groove, who's completely out of left field, you've never seen them talk to the bride and groom, those are indications that maybe what they're asking is not going to necessarily, where they're at may not be where the audience is.
Or they stumbled in from the bar.
Well, that happens too. I did a great wedding with 400 people the other night, and the bride said, "We've got crashers," and I took care of that.
Oh,
It
wow.
does happen from time to time, and they were fun. They were not drunk. They were dancing, and so you would think, well, it adds to the party, but still, they were crashers.
Right. And we've seen the movie. We know how that goes.
We're not going to go there.
Well, we're still talking about seduction, or have you changed subjects?
Self-explanatory. We'll leave it alone. But you have to trust, and this goes back to my philosophy that I shared with you earlier. Are you smelling the audience? Are you watching? Are you listening? Are
Right.
you tasting everything that's part of this experience so that you can make good choices?
Right.
And you're going to make a bad choice. Listen, I call it a wrong turn. You ever turn down a blind alley and then there's nobody at that blind alley and you can't get out of it? It's because you played the wrong song and everybody got off the dance floor.
Right. So switch it up or find a way or reconnect.
Your ability to plan 3, 6 steps ahead makes a difference.
One of the things that has made a difference for me when I feel like I am not getting where this group of people is at. Like I'm back there and I feel like I'm in a glass bubble and I am not getting them. So I will literally I'll have whatever's playing and my assistant will be there and I will walk around the entire room and make eye contact. I won't talk to a lot of people. I'll make eye contact. I'll smile. I'll see what they're doing. I'll see what's happening. And mostly I'm just feeling what's going on over here. And 9 times out of 10, when I get back to the booth, I'm like, I know where to go. I think I know where they want to go. And I recapture that. But it's just the act of putting yourself out in them rather than being stuck way over here, kind of looking at everybody from afar,
It's like Walk a Mile in My Shoes.
Yeah.
Which is a really old song. But the concept is there. I like to do what I call a walkabout because what I hear from the booth, it's always the same sound.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really hear what the audience is hearing.
Right.
And maybe what I'm going to discover is that it's too loud or it's not loud enough or it's not sounding right from their position.
Right.
And then I need to make some changes. And I'm not talking about is it too loud or is my speaker going... Not talking about that kind of sound. I'm talking about what is the vibe. Because you can feel the music in your body. And that feel is the same thing that the audience is feeling.
Right.
And they may not be feeling it. And it's by just doing that walkabout, you can make some really, really informed decisions as a professional, reading the audience, but you got to be in their shoes. So step out of that booth, get around, walk, and listen. A lot of times what you'll discover is it's not a dance party. And DJs need to recognize that you are there for entertainment. And if you are playing music like an iPad, playing music like Pandora, then that's what you're going to be.
Right.
But also recognize that if they're in the room and their heads are going like this and their hands, or you can see that they're in the moment with what's going on, but they're not dancing. You need to recognize you are in the groove.
Yes.
They're just not there to dance.
Yeah.
And not all events are about dancing. They're just not.
Yes, be real about what they're enjoying. If your commitment, because the biggest thing, these always go so fast, and we're always out of time. But what I kind of want to wrap up with is something that I've just observed through the whole conversation of what we were talking about. Is that everything that you're talking about, everything from the music you choose to the way that you do it, or how you set up the dancing, or get people involved, or see what's going on, is all inside of your commitment that everybody have the good time that they came there to have. Not necessarily the one you think they should have, but the one that they came there to have, that your client wants them to have, that, these priorities. And then your commitment is, I'm going to bust my butt and pull every trick I have out of my hat to be able to deliver on that.
Yeah. You explain me so well. You are so well spoken.
I got to listen to you for 20 minutes.
Well, I don't know how different this experience was from what we did last week, but it's all in part of my music philosophy. So I hope you got what you came for.
I did, because you were awesome. Last week was good, but this week was great. So, Scott, thank you so much for being on the show and being on this week's Mobile Music Thursday. I know you're a super busy guy and really in demand, so I always feel privileged when I can have a little bit of your time. And I look forward to talking to you and getting together at breakfast with the Game Master. I'm going to get my butt out of bed, and I'm going to get there really early at the ADJA show coming up here in September. I can't wait, and we can catch up a little bit, and it'll be fun, and I'll have my eggs Benedict, and I'll be happy. So...
Perfect.
I'm looking forward to that. That's Mobile Music Thursday for this week. Check us out again next week, or check our backlog of all the great DJs that we've talked to so far. There's lots and lots to check out. For Mobile Music Thursday, this is Jason Jones and Scott Faver saying so long.